It's close to the end of September, so let's have a September update. I think a fair bit's been achieved in the last month. Let's have a look here. For starters, the big obvious one is the turtle deck is now riveted on. It's in place and its final resting place. The wiring's all been run. The radio's been installed and wired. Can you see it through there somewhere? The radio's mounted on the back of the front seat. It's not a bad place to have it. It's down there. It's readable from the pilot's seat. Instruments are all in and appear to work. The engine instruments anyway, as best I can tell, they appear to work. No, there's no shockers. Yeah, so I just sat that front seat in now. It's been in storage in the house. The back one's been here for a while because I've actually sat in the aeroplane a few times. This little sub panel's in and everything's wired up and seems to work. We'll fire that up in a minute. Have a look. Not too much. I haven't done too much forward of the firewall. Most of these things are installed, but they're really installed so that they take up space. They reserve their space, put it that way. So when I put something else, it has to conform with what is already there. The oil tank is plumbed back up again. All the oil lines are run. Excuse me. The throttle and choke cable have been run. The cables come back and they join the levers back here. This is the throttle, which is ganged to a throttle at the front. So you move one and both move. No big deal. The throttle cable will actually come back to this aft one. The throttle cable's under there somewhere, probably that one. There's two cables. One's the choke. That's the choke cable there, I think. This one's the throttle. They haven't been connected to their associated levers yet. That's still to be done. No big deal. I haven't figured out a nice way of connecting them. They need to be connected properly so that they're installed and won't come off or anything like that. These instruments look really good. It's a pity they're sort of a bit of a mixed match. The three flight instruments, these two and the VSI over here, they're all standard aircraft instruments that you may very well find in your 172 Cessna or whatever. They're standard diameter instruments at 3 1/8. These smaller instruments are 2-inch instruments that are typically, for a car, except these ones have got Rotec written on them. Let's have a bit of a better look there. Yeah, they have Rotec written on them. Unfortunately, they're a bit different. These two have the needle mounted from the bottom. These two over here have the needle mounted from the centre. And they more or less look the same. This bezel looks a little bit different. It's not the same shape as the other bezels. This instrument isn't lit. The other three are actually backlit, but that one's not. It doesn't have provision for it, for lighting. And if you tried to put lighting, then it wouldn't work as it's manifold pressure. So the casing has to be sealed so you can't have a light. Typically in this situation, you'd put a little, I'm not going to do it, but you'd put a little standoff light back here shining on it. Yeah. the chances of having to fly at night time are pretty slim indeed. The tacho over there that looks to be twice as big as all the other instruments is because it is. I think it's 3 3/8 of an inch, and these are 3 1/8. You know, so that extra quarter of an inch makes a hell of a difference. But it looks nice, and it's got an hour meter built in across the bottom there. I've tried to lay the panel out sort of logically. These two, this is oil pressure and oil temperature, so they're related to one another. You know, in the fact that they're to do with oil. They're over here. This is a warning light, low engine oil pressure warning light. So all of the oil system lives together. These are the two instruments that you really need on takeoff and landing, your airspeed indicator and your altimeter. So they're sort of together. You know, I could just as easily have put one of them over that side, but it wouldn't have made sense. And you'd be looking from here to there, to here, to there. No. These instruments over this side, we've got cylinder head temperature and manifold pressure. I wanted the manifold pressure next to the tacho, and because that's an indication of power. Here I am back again. We had to leave you. That was actually yesterday when I finished up that first part of the video. I was saying that the instrument panel's all installed. The instruments look like they will work. The ones that, the flight instruments, there's no question about that. They will definitely work. But the Rotec instruments should work as well, the engine instruments. Not much else to show around here. I'll go around the other side. We've already... I'll work my way forward. What the heck? I moved these couple of batteries back here to the back. They're still only ballast. They're not going to go there. I've added this little false floor here, so that if I do need some aft ballast, I can attach it. I've got a place to attach it to, and it'll just be fairly simple. The radio antenna is temporarily installed right now, but it's installed properly. The ground plane, remember the ground plane lives up under the turtle deck? It's installed and properly. Here's the radio here, attached to the back of the front seat, and it works. It's in. The headphone jacks are installed, and the radio works properly from both cockpits, transmits and receives perfectly. Seat belts. The aft seat belts are really quite straightforward and simple. This is a factory supplied seat belt arrangement. I just haven't connected them yet here. This buckle gets connected to the end of this cable. Let's go around this side. Yeah, so it'll be connected here. It's just a simple matter of dropping that pin in and opening the split pin. So they're just sitting there right now for the aft cockpit. The front cockpit was a little bit different story. That's the other seat cushion that's been in storage the whole time. I fetched it out yesterday. These seat belts, I know Bob Barron was asking about this question. These seat belts do actually go down and attach around a structural. You can actually, if you know what you're doing, you can actually, or you know where the structure is, you can actually go and put a new seat belt in. I'll probably have to undo these ones and take them out so that I can paint. I don't want to do that, but I'm probably going to have to. But yeah, you can do it and not disrupt, in my case, plumbing, because this plumbing runs across the cockpit here at the back of the seat level. It won't disrupt the instruments or the wiring. So that's a plus. The front, I think I'd already modified my dog bowl last video, but basically I had to put a smaller bowl on the back of the other bowl so that I can get the air filter off, so that I can remove the air filter. You've already seen this, but this is the connection for the auxiliary tank, which will be sitting on the seat probably up to about here somewhere or whatever. It's strange when you can't follow me. There you go. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, about a foot, 300 millimetres high, something like that, by 300 or 400 millimetres by 300 or 400 millimetres. So hopefully it'll hold, you know, whatever, 15 litres or something. The wiring, yeah, it looks a bit poxy there, I must admit, no question about that. This one dangling around is for the hour meter. I don't want the, while I'm doing my testing and so on, I don't want the hour meter ticking away. It's already got half an hour on it. Here it is here. You can see that. This all pretty much works. It's all installed and it actually functions. So let's have a go what we've got. We've got the master switch here at the top of the panel. Okay. The two ignition switches. Remember, I had a key installed here at one stage. You can't use a key with this engine. You need actual switches. On this aeroplane as well, because radial engines have a really nasty habit of collecting oil in the lower cylinders. And if you don't make sure that oil's cleared away, you can damage either a conrod or a cylinder base or whatever, or pull the studs out of the crankcase. Something's got to give. If there's oil in the cylinder and you try to wind it over with the starter motor and one of the other cylinders fires while you're trying to do that, you will break the engine. And that's been a problem with radial engines since forever. Okay, so the starting procedure with this is to turn the engine over with the switches turned off. So you put the master switch on, switches off, and it's got a press button. So you press and that'll turn the engine over but not supply any power to the ignition system. Once the engine's rotated a few times, then you can consider flicking the two switches on, and hopefully away you go. Okay, down a little bit further, we've got the obligatory USB connection. This day and age, you can't build an aeroplane without a USB connection. The aeroplane has an absolutely massive electrical system. You're not going to believe this, but this is the entire electrical department here below the USB connection. We have a boost pump, which is wired, and assume it works. It ticks anyway. The middle one's the radio, and this one will be not really an anti-collision light, but I want to mount a couple of LEDs down on the undercarriage somewhere, probably on the front of the legs here somewhere facing forward, so that give me a bit more visibility in the circuit. Anyway, not that I intend operating at night time. At the moment, the wiring runs to just under there somewhere in the front cockpit. Yeah, it's just I haven't bought the lights yet, so I haven't figured out where I'm going to put them or whatever. We've got, as I just pointed out, we have a Hobbs meter, which has to be connected yet. That's a very simple matter. I've got an electronic voltmeter here, the starter button, fuel selector valve. So this will be left tank, auxiliary tank, right tank, and off position facing downwards. Yeah. I haven't, these don't go to a tank yet, so they will do later on in the next day or two. And then of course I've got circuit breakers for the circuits. I put the ignition circuits on two separate circuit breakers, so you can't have one failure and pop the circuit breaker for the, no, we've got two completely separate ignition systems as best I can. Obviously you've only got one battery, so somewhere along the line it's going to come down to one item. But anyway, I've got a couple other things to show you, so let's have a look here. If we put with our master switch, the battery's actually connected up right now. There. If we put the master switch on, we should have power to the instrument panel. There we go. You might have just noticed the tacho does this self-check whiz around. The ITS hour meter will be running now, I think. Actually, no, it needs pulses from the ignition system. We've got a light here saying that we've got lack of voltage generated, and we've got one over there saying we've got a lack of oil pressure right now because the engine's not turning. These other instruments appear to work. If I put heat, I can get the cylinder head temperature to rise, and I can put heat just with a cigarette lighter or whatever. So it will move. The manifold pressure will move as well. Oil temperature, I can't do much about that yet. I guess I could take, I'm not going to, but I could take the bulb out and add heat to it. I'm not going to do that. And of course we've got no oil pressure, so don't expect miracles from that just yet. There you go. So that's, oh, okay, so that's, all right, that's what happens when we get the master switch on. That's what you get, those, the instruments fire up. Voltmeter, we've got 12 volts in the battery. Remember the three switches? This first one was boost pump. I'm not going to run it for any longer than that. That's it, but it functions. The other one is the radio. That puts power to the radio. Here's the radio down here. Now, it may not turn out very well on let's see. Here's my fingers. Okay, well, we'll move the control column out of the way. There's the radio turned on, but the scan rate of the camera and the scan rate of the radio might not work very well. You might just see a bunch of sort of flashing lights or whatever. But anyway, that's the radio. It's dual frequency, monitor one frequency, and transmit and receive on the other frequency. And of course a button to change frequencies, so you can change from one to the other. That 126 frequency jumped over there to the left-hand side, which the left-hand side is what's transmitting and receiving. This right-hand side either receives or is where you set the new frequency. So you can adjust the frequency, which you probably won't be able to see, but if you don't, if you can, and this is 135.65. Okay, and then if you want that frequency, you just press the swap over button, and it goes to the where you want to transmit from. Pretty neat. Okay, so that's pretty much where we are. I'll turn the power off. You're not going to believe this, but I made these hand grips myself. Just some leather wrapped around the end of the stick, and some braiding on the top and the bottom. It's It's exactly what I have on my V6, which has been flying for about 22 years now, and that system works a treat. So there we go. What else have I been doing? Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a looky look over here. I've started fabric covering. This is the rudder, and I tell you what, I was sort of skeptical about doing the fabric. It always concerned me, you know. I really wasn't looking forward to it because I know nothing about it, but I tell you what, as it turned out, it's not that difficult. It's really not that difficult. There's something going on in there. We might talk about it, we might not. Here's my fabric covering rubbish tip by the looks of things, but we've got a roll of fabric here at the front. I've just got a garbage bag over the top to keep it clean. I've got a piece of plastic over the top. I've got this cutting, fabric cutting board and a rotary cutter. This particular cutter has, where are we? It has sort of a pinking pattern, but if you run it across, it will cut quite effectively. It's exceptionally sharp. It's like a razor. But yeah, so you don't get your fingers in it and you don't drop it on your toe. That would be a bad thing. But yeah, you can cut reasonably accurately with this cutter, and it gives you that pinked edges. And I've got a little straight cutter here as well. Somebody gave it to me. I think I know why they gave it to me, because it's sort of hopeless. But it's not as effective, and yeah, it doesn't always cut very well. But anyway, that's some of the tools I've got. Here's a horizontal stabilizer that I prepared earlier. With this Stewart system, the Stewart system uses water-based chemicals, and this is EcoBond. This is the glue they use, yeah, which is this blue-coloured glue. Without going into detail, you paint that basically around the edges, around the perimeter of the piece you're going to cover. Then, there's a pair of pinking shears as well. So you can cut the pinked the fabric with the pinking shears as well. And of course you've got a whole bunch of tapes here. But if you look at this fabric, it's sort of a bit like an unmade bed, or like your sheets on your bed when you just got out of bed. Not very good at all. But if you get the old iron out and you set it at about 250 degrees, which I've marked these temperatures on here after checking with my my infrared thermometer, and we pass this lightly over the fabric. The fabric shrinks like billio. It really does. It's like heat shrink. If you've used heat shrink on electrical wires, it shrinks up and goes, like a drum. I didn't show you that when we looked at the rudder. This is it. Yeah, so the panels on the rudder are really really taut. Why is the rudder that blue-green colour? Yeah, okay. This is a relatively new invention, I suppose, for the Stewart system. Ordinarily, you'd shrink this up, shrink the fabric up with a soldering iron. You pop through these holes here. There's already actually on that structure, there's a type of thin fabric type material. Yeah, it's a sticky backed arrangement, has glue on the back. Just peel that off, put it on underneath the fabric, put it on first, put the fabric on, shrink the fabric, then you can go ahead and punch these holes, and I just use a soldering iron, and they go through quite smartly. Then you can rivet the fabric to the structure using these rivets. They're an aluminium rivet with an aluminium stem. They weigh almost nothing, and of course once you get rid of the stem they weigh half as much as almost nothing. So yeah, so it's really quite simple, and you just do one side. This is the bottom. Then you turn it over and do the same thing to the other side. And when you put the fabric on, it'll come up the sides here and overlap onto this surface. And when you install this on the aeroplane, that surface will be on the bottom, so it won't be visible. It won't be easily visible. And you glue these tapes as well. You get lots of these tapes in the kit. I've got more than lots because Rosie Blackett gave me some. Rosie's on our site, but our Renegade site as well. She built her Renegade and she had some tapes left over. My next door neighbour did use the Stewart system and he had tapes left over. So I've got no shortage of tapes. Plus I've got all my own there, so lots of tapes. But anyway, the upshot of all that is that so far I've only done one rudder and half a horizontal stabiliser, but I'm thinking it's just simply too easy. So far it is really, really easy to do. You know, obviously you watch the videos and it's explained to you how you go about doing each of the stages and where you'd put the overlaps and all that, and how you go about painting it. But yeah, it's you follow the instructions that's in the videos, and there you go. It turns out that it's something that's really quite useful and impressive. I was asked a couple of questions the other day that I'll try and answer. These are some of the bits that I probably won't be using. This is has an ST part number, so it's probably a stabilizer part, but it's also used elsewhere. And one of those elsewheres is somewhere like here on the undercarriage, because this is the later undercarriage for the heavier engine. It's about 3 inches longer than the standard undercarriage. I'm pretty sure that might work actually. Yeah, so it'll install on this brace, this aft brace. I don't think it'll work on the leg at the front because it's not. Oh yeah, I can make it work. It's a bit skinnier than it needs to be. It needs to be a little bit wider. But the drawing doesn't call for any structure in there. But I think if you try to put fabric from that to that, it'll just flap like crazy because it's too big. It needs some sort of structure to attach the fabric to, not to try and brace the leg or anything. That doesn't need that. It's quite heavy. This is not only longer, but it's much heavier structure than what most Renegades will have. So yeah, maybe I can use something like this. Maybe I'll bend up some material myself. Haven't got to that stage yet, and I'm not real sort of concerned about it. But that's one thing. These seats are a little, probably a bit different to most other Renegade. The actual seat itself, don't worry about the cushion. The cushion was supplied by the factory. It's pretty simple tombstone sort of fabric or tombstone shaped vinyl seat. But what I'm trying to show is that the seats are actually raised up at the front, and that looks to be here at the front, looks to be about 1.5 or 2 inches, probably 2 inches from the seat rail. The original drawing shows the actual seat base screwed down straight to the seat rail, and that's not a particularly comfortable seating position on a flat seat. It's like sitting on the floor, which might have been good fun in the 70s, but it's not real much fun at our age. Most of us are not junior burgers. So there you go. Nothing much has happened up the front here. Like I say, these parts are not installed in their exact final position. No, they're not. They're attached in their final position. They're just not attached using the final method. They're reserving their space where they ultimately want to live. There we go. I don't think there's anything more. Haven't advanced the wings any further yet. They're still where they were. I have painted some primer on some of the bits. These interplane struts can be covered now that they've had their paint job or their primer job. I'm really impressed with this rudder, and putting the green, you dilute the daylights out of the green, and then you paint it on. That prevents moisture from getting under and affecting the there's another application that goes on top of this, and that's not particularly waterproof. Now the finishing coat colour keeps the water away from entering that material from above, but nothing was preventing it from affecting the paint from underneath. But this light coat of dilute glue stops moisture from coming from the inside and affecting the paint. That's a relatively recent development from the company. Now you see these beautiful runs here. Well, actually you can't feel the beautiful run because it's actually on the inside of this fabric. It's not on the outside. So the paint won't notice it. Once this is painted, that'll go away. Normally a paint shop, if they see a run, they're not going to be too happy, but here it doesn't matter. Okay, what goes next? Well, this probably this afternoon I'll take the aeroplane off put it down on the floor on its wheels, take it out and turn it around and bring it back in and park it sort of here and put the wings back on. I want to put these, I want to add the fiberglass fairings and put proper attachments for those along the side there. I also want to, on the upper wings, I haven't made the, let's talk about it on this aeroplane. I haven't made that fairing there that goes between the two upper wings. I want to do that and install proper anchor nuts in this sort of position. Obviously that's the fuel tank, so best not be drilling into that one. And yeah, then I can pull it apart again, and it'll be sort of ready to go. So it's good having one you've prepared earlier over here that you can cheat. And how did they do that? I'll go and these fairings are not. These are just little bits of plastic, which the earlier models had. this aeroplane has great big fiberglass things that need to be attached, and that's why it's got this metal piece here to attach the fiberglass intersect fairings to. So that's what's going to happen next. Is we start making fairings and things that I probably should have made when the wings were on before, but bad luck, I didn't do it, and now I pay the price. And yeah, the RV6 is still in the hangar next door, out of the way to give me a bit more space. There's the elevators over there. I've actually added primer to them as well, because the glue sticks better to their primer, and of course the primer's part of the Stewart system as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to covering this as well. But you'll see that probably next month's video or whatever. But that's it for the day. So take care, hope you enjoyed it. Yeah. So there you go. So bye now.